Welcome to the Michigan Football Report. Michigan beats Rutgers 48-42 in triple overtime, where neither team scored in the first, which you don't see too often. 48-42 is the final. Michigan's 2-3 now on the season. 3 games left that are scheduled: Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State. And, of course, everybody's like, well, they're going to win those next 2. They're going to go into the Ohio State game with a 4-3 record, 3-game winning streak. I don't know about all that. I mean, Penn State is 0-5 now. How surprising is that? Maryland's missed a couple games, so we'll see what becomes of their season. But I have to start the show by asking you guys this. I'm recording from home because I'm not going to drive downtown to our studio this late at night, and especially when it looked like they were going to lose most of the game. And so just doing it in the guest bedroom, had to get kicked out of our my room, etc. Go upstairs. So I ask you this: are you happy? Because I was just indifferent in the second half. I'm just like, this is crap. This is over. I hate this program. I hate this coach. But of course, when they start scoring, every time you're jumping up and down, you're getting excited, and then you're like, oh, they're going to give up this touchdown. Oh, they're going to give this 2-point conversion. And they go to overtime, and they win with still some mind-numbing play calls. But I don't think I'm happy. I don't think I'm happy that you're struggling to beat Rutgers, that you're falling down 17-0 to Rutgers, who is now 1-4 in the year. Rutgers, right? I mean, like 2 seasons almost without winning a single Big Ten game. But let me know if you're happy, and then I'll pin this one below the video. Give me a one-word reaction. I guess it's just for me, it's just like an exhale, I don't know what to say about that game. I don't know what to say about that performance, because it's really confusing. Michigan was down 17-0 to Rutgers on the road. And no, this isn't a joke. This is 6 straight games going back to the Alabama and then the 5 this year that Michigan's been down 7-0 in the first quarter. So they're always having to come back. Got down 17-0 before they finally pulled the plug in the middle of the second quarter on the Joe Milton era at Michigan football. It is now Cade McNamara's team. And I just wonder what they saw last week against Wisconsin when Joe Milton did nothing. What they saw from him in practice that they thought he, who hadn't led a team on any scoring drives in 2 weeks, 6 quarters, why he was better than Cade McNamara, because it was obvious to me last week against Wisconsin that McNamara, at worst, looked more competent as a passer, could hit guys in the flats, could make the right decision, could throw the ball away when it was required, something Joe Milton hasn't done really all year. But I want to know what the coaches were seeing from Joe Milton and Cade McNamara that they were still willing to go down 17-0 to Rutgers, willing for Joe Milton to miss 7 of his 8 passes leading up to getting benched, and keeping him in the game, going down 17-0 before you put Cade McNamara in. I just don't get it. Why can you and I, who are watching from home, see it so clearly, but the coaches who see these players every day don't? I don't understand that, by the way. And it's not just Cade McNamara and Joe Milton. Think about this. Cam McGrone wasn't going to play at all last year. He was an all-Big Ten linebacker, maybe the best defensive player Michigan had. He wasn't going to play until Josh Ross got hurt, which I think was in the Wisconsin game. It doesn't end there, though. 2 years ago, Hassan Haskins, who, by the way, 23 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown in overtime, he wasn't going to play. Last year, he was benched until Zach Charbonnet got hurt after the Army game. 2 years ago, Hassan Haskins, again, 23 carries, 112 yards tonight. He was a linebacker 2 years ago, a linebacker in the 2018 season. So why can't this team, identify talent? Mo Hurst didn't get a starting job at Michigan until he was a 5th-year senior, right? I don't know why John O'Corn was getting starts when we all saw clearly Brandon Peters is a better quarterback. He's still proven it to this day, and it's 2020, right? This is 3 years ago. It was obvious to everybody. So I can't understand it. Jalen Mayfield's another one I just thought of. He was clearly a really good lineman, NFL caliber, and yet he didn't even get barely a snap in 2018 as a true freshman, when Lil John Running and some others were really struggling early on in the year. But it's pretty interesting because when Joe Milton went out, Michigan had almost no running game going. And then they get the running game going. Hassan Haskins, I told you, the 112 yards. Even Zach Charbonnet finally got 6 carries for 26, so Michigan ends with 148, which is the combination of all the other rushing yards the past 3 weeks, probably. It seems like it. But the running backs were better. The running game was better. The offensive line was better when Cade McNamara got in the game. Wide receivers were making plays when Cade got in the game. Special teams started making plays, right? They had a touchdown in special teams to start the second half to get Michigan really back in the game. We made, I guess the extra points in overtime were needed, although there was a shank of a field goal in the first overtime by Quinn Nordine that probably should have cost Michigan the game. But let's just talk about Joe Milton's stats. Joe Milton's stats versus Cade McNamara. 27 of 36. That is 75% passing, 4 touchdowns, 260 yards in 2.5 quarters plus overtime. And you can't rack up yards in overtime. Think about it this way. Prior to Jim Harbaugh being the coach at Michigan in 2015, the record for single-game touchdown passes for a Michigan player ever was 4 touchdowns. Cade McNamara comes in and does it in 2.5 quarters. Yet Jim Harbaugh, Josh Gaddis, Ben McDaniels, they can't recognize that he's better than Joe Milton, who has not been able to do anything in weeks at this point. I don't get it. Let's see Cornelius Johnson, have a kind of a bounce back after he had that fumble in the first drive. And I think he had a drop later in the game in overtime. But nevertheless, he had a nice bounce back game. Kind of go through the offense here. The offensive line, missing 3 starters, so I'm not sure what you can expect. But the guys are on scholarship. So they played an okay game. Certainly felt like they felt more confident with with Cade McNamara in the game. But then let's talk about the defense. The defense is a disgrace, okay? I heard this stat during the broadcast. Michigan given up 35 points the last 5 years. Jim Harbaugh's first 5 years at Michigan, they'd given up 35 points total to Rutgers. This Don Brown defense gives up 42 points tonight. I understand 15 of that was in overtime, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter. Don Brown is declining. And let me just say this about that. I'm going to talk about Don Brown just a little bit more, but Matt Dudek, Michigan's recruiting coordinator, has got to be let go from this program. If Jim Harbaugh returns as coach, which I don't think he should, but Matt Dudek has proven 3 straight classes, and they are playing 3 or 4 walk-ons in the second half for Michigan. Adam Shipley, I'm just forgetting, Jesse Spate was playing in there, right? Hunter Reynolds I'm just missing his name at this point, but Hunter Reynolds, the safety, that came in in the second half. So why are there not capable backups? Why aren't there second and first-year players that are in nearly December, Thanksgiving week, of their second and their first year on campus? Why can't they even get in the game for a couple snaps? But we've got to rely on Hunter Reynolds. We've got to rely on Jesse Spate. We've got to rely on Adam Shipley. There's no first and second-year players that can make any impact on defense, and it comes down to recruiting, and then even more so potentially comes down to player development when they get in there. But I think that Matt Dudek is a below-average recruiting coordinator, and I think we're seeing that on the field this year, given that he's been with this program for 3.5 years. One last point that I want to talk about. At the end of the first half, at the end of the regulation, before overtime, why do they give Cade McNamara, and I guess actually into the first half it kind of happened too, but why do you give Cade McNamara no chance to throw a couple passes downfield, get Michigan in field goal range, to just try and win? They just ran the ball and frankly ran the clock out. It was really annoying, and I think it showed no confidence that McNamara would get the job done when clearly he had proven that he was getting the job done. So I don't know what to tell you. But the one last thing I'll say on the defense is they didn't show much heart when it counted. When Rutgers had to come down at the end of regulation, get a touchdown, 2-point conversion, Michigan gave them the touchdown, and then that 2-point conversion was frustrating because the quarterback went up the middle and he outmanned Michigan's basically 2 or 3 of their defensive linemen, and that was frustrating to see. So I'm glad this team fought back from down 17-0. I'm glad they potentially had a couple times in overtime it looked like they could lose, and they fought through it. They were showing Ed Warner, Jim Harbaugh, Josh Gaddis kind of hugging, embracing at the end of the game, but it's not over for these guys. You can't lose either of the next 2 games, or the heat is even more on, right? Because Penn State's 0-5. Maryland hasn't played in weeks, but they look good when they have played, I guess. At least one game. But you go to Ohio State game, you still lose that one by 70. I don't think anything changes unless you win the next 2 games somewhat convincing fashion. Maybe you win them by 10, right? That's convincing for Michigan. And you don't get embarrassed. You don't embarrass the program. I could coach Michigan and get blown out by 60 or 70 to Ohio State. I guarantee you I could get blown out by 70 points. Believe me. And so if Jim Harbaugh is going to make $8 million a year and he wants to get a contract extension, you just can't go into year 6 against a coach who's in year 2 who's had no head coaching experience prior to this. When you've had a ton, you can't go into that game in year 6 and get blown out by 50 or 60 points, which I think it looks like will happen. Now, I'm happy with what I saw from Cade McNamara. It is clearly his team, but Michigan's got Penn State next. Thanksgiving weekend, Saturday. Penn State is now 0-5. They lost again today. They lost to Iowa. I'll have to grab the score again. I was just looking at it before jumping on to film this. But it is it's just amazing because if not for Michigan pulling this one out against Rutgers just now, that would have been 1-4 Michigan against 0-5 Penn State. Final score in the Penn State game, they lost by 20, 41-21. Other note in the Big Ten, Wisconsin, after crushing Michigan last week, 48 points, only scored 7 today against Northwestern, and they lose that game. So that is all. I'll be back on Sunday with some more Michigan football report. We'll look ahead to this Penn State week. I'll talk to you about who got snaps, who didn't, and what the latest rumors and news around the Michigan football program are. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll toss the subscribe icon there. I will see you guys later. Go Blue.